Welcome to the dumbest timeline. We go through the dumbest timeline. Is this truly the dumbest timeline?
Welcome to another edition of the Dumbest Timeline, everyone. Series 2 AI. I love saying it that way because it feels like it's, this dramatic thing. But if you guys are listening to the show, you know I am serious about the subject, but it's not that serious in my head. Although I would say some of you who've been messaging me or coming back to me on the subject feel that it's that serious because the energy has been, hey, we should not want artificial general intelligence, like I said in the first episode. But I've said it. I've been saying for years that I'm interested in the singularity. So it's not new for me to make that comment, and it's also not new for me to, I guess, defend the idea. I'm not as much defending it as saying this is something I personally find interesting. And in a world where AI is being trained properly, and properly being an unbiased training, which is almost impossible, but in that world, I want an artificial general intelligence singularity. We'll see if we get there. On this week's episode, we have a guest. We're talking with Samarah. Samarah is a colleague of mine from work who is also studying music production, and it felt like a great opportunity to talk to someone who's in a creative space while AI is kind of growing the way it's growing, at the pace it's growing. In the last episode, I talked about Suno and Udio, so it almost felt perfect to talk to someone who is making music right after an episode where we talked about an AI or two AIs that make music. Like I said, Metro Booming's BBL Drizzy became one of the most popular, biggest hits. If you notice, it was never officially released. It's not available on streaming platforms because the licensing for the song wouldn't have been possible, as it was created with a sample that was generated from an AI. And those are all the types of things that I am looking forward to discussing more. But tune into this episode right now with Samarah, and we'll be back with more after. What's up, everyone? This is Brian Holidae, and we're just continuing our series on AI use, AI in art, AI in creative spaces. We're here with Samarah.
Hi.
Samarah is a colleague of mine at work. We did a test run of this interview earlier, which you'll never get to hear, but in it,
Thank God.
At the time, I referred to her as the intern because that is how you started out. But at this point, you've been a colleague for so long. You've done such great work. I felt like it was doing you a disservice calling you an intern.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be working with you.
Oh, please. Not with me. With the whole team.
With the whole, obviously.
Yeah,
the whole
not
team.
just me. I mean, I would love if it was just me because I'd be special, but there's a whole big team. So the reason I wanted to talk to you specifically is because you are currently, if I'm not mistaken, studying music production.
Right.
And in 2024, AI became a big thing in the last couple of years. And you've been studying music production about the same time as AI has been coming up.
Yeah.
So I would say first thing, how does that even feel for you?
I mean, in the school that I'm in currently, it's not really we're not really using AI as much as like we should be, maybe. Or
interesting.
I feel like I use AI way more at work than I do at school.
Yeah.
Because we're just learning like the basics of production, and I feel like music has always been like without AI, so like why change it up now if it's only been a year that it's like so incorporated?
True. We didn't talk about this earlier, but do you think, because it's an interesting point you make, you're not using it at your school at all, do you think it does you and your fellow students a disservice to not be learning about how AI is being used in music?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because even just like when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, I'm like so not involved in this whole AI thing, and I'm kind of scared of like how that's going to be when I actually work in music production. Like, how is that going to feel for me?
Yeah, because if other people are using it and being trained on it, and then you come along and you've been trained this way, you're now not necessarily playing catch up, but you're going to have to reformat how you learn things in conjunction with the
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I asked you earlier too, you making music and working as a producer and stuff like that. Now that you've seen, because we played around with Suno AI.
Yeah.
And I think the other one's called Udio, both of which are being sued, by the way, for those of you who don't know. And when we talked about that, I remember the first time I played it for you, you were like, this is kind of crazy.
I was shook.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, how can I spend like weeks working on a song and that takes 2 minutes?
Yeah.
And it sounds better than anything I've produced.
Well,
I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah. I would say it might sound better than anything you're producing now as a student starting off. Yeah. So I think that's fair. Because remember, someone said recently, if a human was to read every book ever written, it would take them they could only get through 80 million books in their lifetime. Whereas an AI can get through 80 million books in a day.
That's insane.
So it's obviously a disadvantage, but at the same time, one of the things I always say is AI doesn't have the spark. It doesn't have the spark of creation. It doesn't have the Greeks would say a muse. It's just mimicking everything that's come before it.
It's not personal.
That too.
Yeah. I feel like that's the thing also that I'm not so scared about with AI is that when you're a producer, you can be with the artist and communicate what kind of sound you want, what vibe or whatever. But AI, it's I don't know, produce me a beat that sounds like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what have you worked with some of the people in your class that you've worked with? Do you know if any of them are using AI outside of?
Nobody.
No. Oh, really?
Nobody. Okay. I mean, they use ChatGPT for studying classes.
Sure.
That's not the same thing.
But music production wise,
nobody. Everyone just wants to do it themselves, I guess, and have an advantage of being good on their own first.
Yeah.
And then maybe use AI to their advantage.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think with the recent people I've spoken with, the kind of dichotomy has been some people see AI as a tool and some people see it as something that's going to ruin the industry.
Yeah.
They all agree, though, however, that big business is going to use it and abuse it, and creatives are most likely going to use it and innovate with it if they do decide to use it.
Yeah. But I feel like there's always two different types of people.
Yeah.
Even on SoundCloud, there's artists that have, just people who use AI to produce beats of let's say Drake.
Yeah.
An AI beat that Drake made or whatever, and it kind of sounds better than what he's actually putting out. That's scary in my opinion. Imagine your whole career, you make good songs and you're popping off, and then one person on SoundCloud makes an AI beat. Yeah. It's just crazy to me.
I'm interested. I still think the thing that will come, because I feel like I like AI, but not in the context of taking over the world and stuff some of my friends think. I know some of you are listening to this and laughing right now, but I like AI in the sense that I find it interesting. First of all, what we have right now isn't even AI. I still refer to it as large language models or advanced learning systems, because none of it it's not an intelligence. It's not creating on its own. It's just been able to mimic at a faster rate. And I'm still waiting for the singularity version where we have an actual AI producer make something on its own completely from scratch.
And you're not scared about that? You don't think it's going to ruin a lot of people's careers?
I think it will. I don't think it will ruin careers, because I think in our entire lives, we've advanced with technology.
Mm-hmm.
From and this is going to sound pretentious as fuck, and I don't mean it to, but Beethoven and Mozart and how they were writing music, to how Christopher Drake, Hans Zimmer, and all these guys are writing music for film. Technology has advanced so much that the way they write and the way they used to write is probably very different. They probably have tons of different things. They might even have new instruments that weren't even around at the time. They have different tools. They have different advantages for how to record the sound that they're making. Beethoven and those guys didn't even get to record they heard people perform their pieces, but they didn't get to record it at the time. All that stuff I take into consideration. So the idea that if there is ever an artificial intelligence that comes along and can create on its own, I'm like, cool, but there's still always going to be a human doing something.
That's true.
I mean, unless they take over the planet. Which
yeah.
Which
then everything goes to shit.
Yeah. Which if they have taken over the planet and the AI overlords are listening to this, I've been a supporter since day one, and I welcome the AI overlords.
Oh, we know.
I know.
I remember that convention about AI, and you were there. You were present.
I was
whole
excited. I wanted to be in the mix.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. I really do. Samarah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Is there anything else you would like to tell people about AI, your interest, your disinterest, your last final thoughts?
My last final thoughts would be, I don't think I'm as scared as I once was after this conversation. I think that it will eventually help the industry in many ways.
Yeah.
As long as, producers and artists stay true to themselves.
Yeah.
And don't let it take over.
Yeah. And I think also, fingers crossed, they get more control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I honestly feel that this is one of the things that I'll give my final thought. I've mentioned this before. I truly believe that in a world where artists have control of how AI is trained and used, we have a better chance of something positive coming out of it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's another one. Thank you for jumping in. And you'll find all the info in the descriptions wherever this is.
Link in bio.
Link in bio, as the kids say.
Thank you.
Peace, y'all. And that's the end of that episode. Thank you guys for tuning into another one. This is The Dumbest Timeline, Part 2, AI. Or I guess Series 2, AI, as I said. Make sure you guys check out all things Brian Holidae at Brian Holidae on all socials. That's HOLIDAE. And I'll be back for more. You can also check out my other podcast, Geek Cypher, Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. on streaming platforms. We do it live, but you can also check us out at geekcypher.com, GEEKCYPHA.com. And that's it. I'll be back with another one. Peace.
The Dumbest Timeline, Series 2, AI, hosted by Brian Holidae. Produced by Brian Holidae for Brian Holidae Productions. Co-produced in partnership with Free X Agents Media. Theme song by Jasper Q. Jones. Mixing by Brian Holidae. Enjoyed the show? Follow this show on Spotify or review it on Apple Podcasts. Lastly, subscribe to The Dumbest Timeline on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.